all leads to dead ends. God damn it leads to dead ends.
No, calm down, partner.
God, man, don't tell me to calm down. Literally everything that has happened this month has been nothing but hell. First, it was that weird feeling that I sensed back in January. Then it was those weird interruptions in my videos back in February. And then I was put into a 3-day coma back in March. And now Yammy's missing.
Look, I know this isn't something that's easy. I get that. But at the same time, you can't exactly give up.
Everywhere I looked, it's all lead to nothing but dead ends. Even if I was to find just some sort of sliver of his presence, I get nothing. It's like a piece of my heart just got ripped out of my chest. I don't want to lose him again. Even with the repairs that I'm making to Dee Dee, it's like she just won't turn back on again. So there goes that chance of finding him if he's lost in another dimension. I mean, how does an inner demon just disappear like that?
I don't have all the answers, Green. Frankly, you know more about Yammy than I do at this rate. But what I do know is this. This isn't the first time you lost him. And like before, he found his way back to you. And when he does, you'll probably both yell at each other, hate each other, but laugh about it later.
I just wish there was something that would make this whole thing easier.
I know, partner. I know. How about we do something to get our minds off things, yeah?
Maybe film another review. I mean, those two have been getting good traction, and there are a good time waster.
You sure you want to do something like that? Last time you reviewed something, the result was...
Look, Godman, I appreciate the concern and everything, but I'll be fine.
Well, okay.
Oh, come on! The intro card's bugging now, too?
Maybe because technically your last review didn't count, the intro doesn't want to overwork itself?
It's an intro. How can it... You know what? Never mind. Where's my Sonic? Okay, reverse the polarity here, reconnect this. Why is there fur in here? God! Get out of here, you! Go! Shoot! Jeez! Okay, where was I? Okay, that should fix the problem. Okay, got him on. Roll it. That's what I like to see.
Hey everyone, Gosei Green 1290 here, back with yet another collection review. And since the last review was talking about the Zenkaiger collection that I owned and its anniversary aspects, why not talk about the last Rider anniversary with everything I owned from Kamen Rider Wait, no, this isn't the right collection. This is the Saber collection. Well, granted, it did technically hold the mantle of Kamen Rider's 50th anniversary for a time. It was an Ozen Forze situation where one may have celebrated the date of birth for the franchise, the other one celebrated the year. So, much to my dismay, and the fact that I want to remake my old Saber reviews, and as much as I think that Saber is the better anniversary season than its successor, we're going to be instead taking a look at everything I own in my collection related to Kamen Rider Revice. Now, in my original reviews, I only did a select few things, talking about a few of the Vistamps and only 2 of the drivers, and while yes, most of this video is redoing those older reviews, there are some newer items that I have and I will talk about when the time arises. But before we get into that, let's talk about the rumors and such regarding Revice during rumor season of 2021. Rumors at the time were going around that Rider would do something pretty crazy, having a 2-in-1 aspect with the main motif of a dinosaur and having 2 riders share the mantle of Rider for that year. Then we got our first of many fake kit bashes for this year, which weren't too much to go off of, but then images of the driver itself got leaked and the information of a stamping gimmick with a little TV screen with a magnet pad was later rumored. And then we got our first look at Revice via promotional material for Superhero Senki. And lo and behold, the most unique rider design of all time was revealed. The duo of Kamen Rider Revi and Kamen Rider Vice. Revice as a show, to me at least, was a bit of a mess. Some things I wish they could have done better, but I feel like the later arcs were what gave the series a solid entry for me. However, though, there were some major kinks and issues that I had with it. And honestly, most of those issues that I do have with this season extend to the gimmick and the mainline driver itself. The Revice Driver itself was released in September of 2021, and you can get it in two ways, the standard DX way and the 50th anniversary set edition with the DX Vata Vistamp and the 50th anniversary booklet. And before we talk about my genuine criticisms of this thing, let's talk about the things I actually like about it. First and foremost, the design. While most would say that it's awkward, this is probably the most comfortable design ever to hold. The handle on the side of the opposite hand for the rotating gimmick is a nice touch, and the color choices that they made with this thing are really nice to the eyes too. Dark transparent purple with hints of light blue and chrome pink around the magnet pad really do give this design its own form of uniqueness. And of course, in the standby mode, it has a 50 design on the front. And I kinda like that for that reason. It's subtle and on the nose, sure, but it's the nice kind of subtlety. However, the transparent plastics mean that this thing is susceptible to scratches. And this is more than just a problem with this driver. The Jiku driver and the Sengoku driver share the same issues if you put certain lighting conditions on these things. Yikes, that's not pretty at all. And while we're on the subject of other drivers, the size is noteworthy, because the second you take it out of the box, one thing you'll notice is that it's actually smaller than the Jiku driver, which I thought was impossible given how most DX toys are often bigger than the usual sizes. And I know that I said the stamp showing mechanism was cool earlier, but sometimes the mechanism can get caught or stuck on itself, sometimes screwing with the transformation, which thankfully didn't happen while filming this video, but it has happened to me before in the past, but I feel like I should still mention it. Another thing is that this thing doesn't like standing still for the life of it. The rounded edges here are a stylistic choice because apparently it wants to compete against the Fembionicle mocks for the most curves in plastic ever. Sure, it's semantical, but it doesn't work, and I don't have a bucket to properly display this thing. And speaking of displays, since the size is too small, on a frame like mine, it's way too tight, even on the lowest belt loop settings. So take that as you will. But what I just mentioned, pixie dust compared to the major complaints I have with this toy line, because most of my critiques are ultimately with the gimmick for this year, the Vistamps. Now, slow down before you start raising your torches and pitchforks and sawed-off shotguns.
I said wait, gosh damn it.
The Vistamps are yet another contender of the random thing that becomes a Kamen Rider gimmick club, taking something as simple as a stamp and turning it into a gimmick, to a 50-50 split reception. Let me explain. The goods of the Vistamp are that they're stylish, colorful, and work to each of their own when it comes to certain animals, insects, and dinosaurs representing each legendary rider. However, that's only one of two aspects as to why I have mixed feelings about these things. Let's start off with the first glaring issue, the legend rider representation. For some of these, they make sense if you think about it, because some of these are lore deep cuts, like Kuga having a lion because he was going to be a lion-themed rider before settling on a beetle, or Saber being a swordfish because of the sword in its name, or Ichigo being a grasshopper because symbolism, or Ryuki being a kimono dragon because durr. But then you get to the oddballs, like a gorilla for Forze, or an
Anomalocaris
for Black, or a jackal for Exe. Sure, some of these are unique, like Megalodon for Decade or Mantis for Gaim, but others are just, well, awkward. And on top of that, for our first dinosaur-themed rider, only 2 out of his 10 main forms that he has for Legend Rider statuses are only dinosaurs, which ticks me off because there's no consistency. Which brings me to my second point of why I don't like these. Here we have all the Vistamps that I own that were available in the DX range. And these are all the Vistamps that were either exclusives to P Bandai or hard to find. When a key gimmick item is used in the show frequently, it shouldn't be so hard to get for collectors, especially for the P Bandai range. And honestly, stuff like the secondary and tertiary rider belts and items relegated like this to P Bandai only got worse from here. Yeah, sure, there are a few negatives that do sometimes outweigh the positives, mostly distributions like I said, but I feel like functionality-wise, I feel like these things shine. So let's turn it on and stamp and roll. As you can see, it's a very interactive driver with very few electronics, and honestly, I think the simplicity works in its favor. And this only continues on to its finishers. And of course, if you hit the button at the top during the finisher standby, you can access the remix function. So by itself, it works pretty well, but like with any other gimmick, the more you collect, the more fun you get out of it. So here's a speed run of all the Vistamps, both main henshin and remix jingles. Now, I know I said the critiques I had with this belt outweigh some of the goods, but I think the jingles are honestly what make this thing work in its favor, and tickle the part of my brain that loves noisemakers that come with certain rider belts. However, there is one power-up item that sort of worked as a roleplay item and a weapon to its favor. The DX Rolling Vistamp was released in March of that year and was their first knuckle duster weapon in a very long time. Whereas the main gimmick was just stamps, this one takes the idea of a paint roller and cranks it up to 11, with it being a knuckle weapon with splashes of pink, yellow, and blue, and the eyes of Vice indicating this stamp is primarily for him. And since I loved Vice as a character, of course I was going to get this.
There also was another reason why I have the Rolling Vice stamp in my possessions, but you know what? Never mind.
First things first, the knuckle sounds itself. At first, this thing has voice clips for a DX range item. And finally, you can technically access an attack sound, but we're going to save it to the actual demo, which is what we're getting to right now. Sure, it makes the driver a bit top-heavy, but it is a pretty cool piece, I'm not gonna lie. And of course, you can do the usual attack sounds and remix sounds. And there are some unique versions of these said attack sounds, which I can't remember whether or not they used it in the show or not, but man, the amount that they crammed into this thing is neat. And of course, much like with the previously released Bodied Rex Vistamp, you can use other DX Vistamps. However, the attack sounds are made the same, but again, it is a neat addition. And that's all I can really say about the Revice Driver itself. It's not perfect, but it's not the worst design or functional rider driver I've seen. However, much like with the original reviews on this Toyland that I did way back when, I did take a look at another DX release from this year. This being the DX Demons driver itself. The driver itself being released in January of 2022, then March, then in the summer, and then again in the fall season of that year. And it was the first review that I did in 2023, before retiring reviews for 2 years, and then bringing it back. Anyways, the Demons Driver itself was the second rider belt we saw in the show, but was the main belt for the fourth rider in the show proper, used primarily by two rider aliases, Kamen Rider Demons and Kamen Rider Over Demons. And between both riders, you had a few users. For Demons, you had Hiromi, Ortega, and George, and for Over Demons, you had Hikaru and Go. The driver itself essentially being a techno-organic hybrid driver housing the demon of Veil for the time before being relegated to being a mass-produced driver. It's a glorious effect. Even when this thing hit the scene in the show proper, I just immediately thought, yeah, this is what I want. Because because man, this thing is sexy. Navy blue, black, gunmetal gray, and a deep red really sell this for me. The rubber vein bits, despite the fact that they can get damaged over time, are very much durable and work well to this driver's abilities and essentially continue the Revice Driver stamping philosophy by being an ink pad with a stamping screen. And this thing also does a very first for Rider, because this is the first driver to incorporate LEDs into the driver's play functions. And after this, it became a standard to this very day. For better or worse. Let's turn it on and make a deal. So as you can see, it already has a lot of cool features included, but much like I said earlier, the more Vistamps you have, the more fun you get out of it. And like with the Revice Driver, it has the ability to use the Vistamps to do its own form of remixing called Genomix, which basically means that one part of the body gets replaced by the Vistamp's animal of choosing. And of course, it can read all the Vistamps included, but you can only do the Genomix up to 4 times. So here's that. And of course, you can use the Vistamps for regular transformations, but it's a standard you could do this with the primary rider gimmick demonstration, so to speak. And speaking of demonstrations, let's go ahead and get over demons out of the way because I completely forgot about it during the first section. So overall, it's a beefcake. A very fun, very bright, and very colorful beefcake, and probably one of my favorite rider drivers that aren't from the primary character. And that's where it ends. I know there were some other items that I had that you guys probably have seen in past videos, but unfortunately I got rid of those over time because I didn't really see much use for them in my collection, nor had the desire to keep them. But overall, despite its flaws and the show itself being a mid-tier rider series, it's definitely fun to fiddle with, and this review has been fun to film over the course of its runtime. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and this is Gosei Green 1290 signing out. See you guys next time.
Giggle. You still do the same tedious things despite your current situations. Sheepish chuckle.
Creepy voice. Good to hear from you again.
I would say it's nice to see you, but that would be lying.
Alright, look. To tell the truth, can we just stop with this whole ominous back and forth? Because I'm really getting sick and tired of the last 4 months. So, can you just, do me a favor and just, show yourself?
Thinking. Contemplating. Brain blast. Okay. I'll show myself.
Well, now I know what's been messing with my videos the last 4 months.
Good to see you too, silly.
Okay, so a couple things. Number one, how are you here right now? Because technically you're dead.
You are referring to canon. I am simply not canon. I am what you call variant of the image you seek. I am essentially everything and anything the absolute solver was to your knowledge, just different. Teehee.
Does that also include being in the form of a living plushie, or...?
I roll. Yes, this was the only thing I could inhabit at the time of my arrival. However, I needed to take care of some loose ends before making my appearance.
Oh. Well, that only explains why the rest of the Murder Drones plushies that I own haven't done anything.
No, that is purely coincidental. And the fact you didn't want to do more work for this story arc, I was referring to the other figures in this room. Your little spider bot proved to be the perfect host to project myself until my figure was ready, but when the other you caught on, I needed to find a way to get rid of him, and fast.
Wait, Yami? What did you do to Yami?
Your demon was smarter than I had anticipated, but to my shock, he put up a good fight. That was sarcasm, by the way. I simply took him out of the room and threw him away. However, I was surprised you were unconscious upon my arrival, so I tried to wipe you out from the inside.
Wait, so that weird dreamscape I was in, you wanted me to be in that repeating cycle? You wanted me to sleep for eternity?
Only to do what I deemed fun.
Right, because you consider everything fun above else while you're torturing. Just, look, answer me this. What exactly brought you here?
During your scuffle last year.
The another battle. That's what brought you here?
No, it was before that. Your past self's timeline reset seemed like fun to me. So when I caught wind of your universe, I made my descent. However, this universe didn't take too kindly to my form, so I found the perfect way to get to you while I recovered.
Diddy, what are you doing? Putting her in stasis. That way, when I reboot her, she won't lose any of her core functionalities, and her memory banks will still be intact.
So it was you who broke Dee Dee, not the another. That was you!
Correct. Right. Game show buzzer noise.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but the prophet's gone now. I'm the only representation of that person now.
Oh, on the contrary, 'cause I am not here to kill. I'm here to take you for myself. You see, in my universe, the Solver is a creation of alchemy and mankind. And since you have the highest alchemy in your universe now, it's prime for the taking.
And another thing you need to know is that I always come prepared for these situations.
Gabberman realizing.
My friend here is going to make sure of that.
What friend?
What did you just do?
Techno-organic being. I can possess and control technology, remember, silly? Get snuck upon.